Today we're going to be talking about the second section of the Salesforce Admin Certification Exam, the Object Manager and Lightning App Builder. This is going to take up 20% of the exam. Let's talk about what we need to know to ace this part of the exam. I'm going to walk through it in a dev sandbox so we can see firsthand what these different objects, what these different relationships look like. So let's get into it. First bullet point here is describe the standard object architecture and relationship model. Let's first talk about the standard object architecture. And we're going to do that by jumping into Salesforce and looking at the Schema Builder, which will be a question on the exam. Here I am in this developer edition of Salesforce. And what I want to do is I'm going to go into the setup side of Salesforce and we're going to talk all day about the Object Manager, which if you notice here just on the setup side of Salesforce, it has its own dedicated tab here. So we're gonna jump in here to the Object Manager. Here on the Object Manager page, you can find all of the objects listed within your current Salesforce. And so you can see here the label, the API name, and even what type, whether it's standard or custom. In this case, we see a lot of standard objects. And so what I want to talk through is the standard architecture. Architecture, in my mind, is talking about how the building is built. What are the connections or the relationships to these objects? And so a great way to visualize this is in the Schema Builder here. This is very likely a question on the exam, so make sure you understand what the Schema Builder is. We're going to jump into it so you can see what it looks like and what you can do with it. So here in the Schema Builder is where you can visualize all of the different objects and how they relate to one another. So if I quickly zoom out here, this is going to be pretty crazy looking. You're going to have a lot of different objects and all of their different connections. Definitely looks like a rat's nest here, you know, with all the different ties between these objects. But want to really boil it down to the very commonly used standard objects that will be shown on the exam. And so I want to boil it down to accounts, contacts, leads, opportunities, and I'll add in cases there as well. There might be a few questions or maybe talking about different products, price books, opportunity products, but we really want to focus on these five. And so a great way to visualize this is by only selecting these five objects. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that here in the Schema Builder. And so, as I mentioned, I want the account, I want the contact, I want the lead, and then I'm gonna grab the opportunity and case to round this out. So here's the opportunity, and here is the case. So here I have these five objects selected in the Schema Builder, and let's talk about how they're related to one another. So when we talk architecture, we're talking about how these objects or these rooms relate to one another in the greater Salesforce or in the greater Salesforce building. So some quick callouts we're going to have is how the account or the company object is central to Salesforce here. The account is where a lot of different objects are going to tie in. And just visually here, you can actually notice that the account has links to the opportunity, to the contact, and to the case. It's the only object that has ties to all of those different objects. And so relationships are how you tie objects to one another, how you can relate and how you can make that connection between the two. And so very easy call out here is on the contact or the individual is you have to have a relationship with the account or the account name. You know, if I go onto a record here, if I go onto a contact, I'm just going to jump into any contact here. We'll see here on this contact that it is tied to an account through the account name. And so this is actually a relationship field or a lookup field to where as I edit it, I can actually, instead of typing in open text, I can actually look up an account and tie it directly to it. So as I hit save, you'll see that this is a clickable link that is a lookup to the account object. So that's how we have the account tied to the contact. So the contact to an account is a great example of a relationship or a lookup relationship. Now I want to talk about lookup relationships versus master detail relationships. A lookup relationship can be optional or it can be required. Just in this case, the contact here is tied to an account, but it does have the ability to be an orphan contact, which is not recommended, but it can live without having that account tie. Now there is a relationship called a master detail relationship, which is where one record has to exist in order for the other to exist. And this is what allows you to also have roll-up fields, which we'll get to in a later portion of this video. But that's very important to understand the difference. Make sure you understand why you would set up a lookup relationship versus a master detail relationship. And understand how many master detail relationships between the same objects you can have. Looking back at the Schema Builder, very important to understand how these objects are relating to one another through lookup relationships, through master detail relationships, as well as hierarchy relationships. And by that, I mean you can set up an object to reference itself. As you can see here on the account, this is called an account hierarchy, or essentially if you have one company that is the owner of a lot of smaller companies, you'll have this existing in Salesforce under an account hierarchy. So to illustrate a hierarchy relationship, so showing on the record here, I'm on an account now, but I want to have a parent account, or I want to establish a hierarchy. And so this might be, for example, this is United Oil and Gas Singapore, but I also have a corporate account here in Salesforce that I want to relate so that this Singapore branch can live under the corporate account. And this is going to be done through that hierarchy relationship or a relationship field that is looking up to the same object. This is an account looking up to another account. And so under the parent account, what I'd like to do is I want to actually look up my corporate account, which is here, United Oil and Gas Corporation. So as I hit save, you'll now see that I have this view account hierarchy. And so this is a great way to also visualize the hierarchy of this lookup relationship between accounts. You'll see here, United Oil and Gas Corp is the parent account living under that is the Singapore branch. And so that is a good illustration of what the hierarchy relationship is. It's that lookup relationship that's on the same object. Thus far, we've looked at how contacts can relate to accounts, and we've looked at how accounts can also relate to accounts. Now I'd like to build a relationship to show you what that looks like. And so if we notice here on the Schema Builder, we'll notice that the lead object is not tied to any of the current objects that we have listed here, right? Out of these 5, leads do not directly relate to one of them. But I would like the lead to search for any existing accounts. In another video, I talk about lead to account matching, which is a phenomenal thing that you should build in all of your orgs so that those incoming leads, you can potentially match them up to existing accounts. But I want to have that. I want to have a lead match to look up to an account. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to go in here under Object Manager, and I'm going to go to the lead. Wherever this object wants to be referenced, it needs to live on that object. So in this case, the lead, I want to relate to an account, so this field needs to live on the lead. So I'm going to go here under Field and Relationships, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit New, and I'm going to create a lookup relationship. So here we have a lookup relationship where I'm going to establish the account. Now, before I move on from the screen, this is all very important information regarding those relationship fields. Make sure you understand limitations and how many you can have of each. It's all going to be done as you build out your custom objects and build out your custom fields. Please do so as you're studying for this section. So back here, I'm going to create that lookup relationship, and it's going to say which object you want to relate that to. I want to relate it to an account. So I'm going to hit next here, and on this, I'm going to say I'll call it matched account. And always put in a quick description. account that matches this lead based on, we'll say domain and email, which is something that pretty common. As I mentioned, it's another video that's great to match those leads to accounts. And so this is now on the child relationship name. So showing up on the account is this related list, and it's gonna be called leads, which is fine. We can also mark it as required. Do we want this lookup to be required whenever we look to save? This can be very important as you're making sure that data integrity. You may want to require these fields as you create these custom architecture, this structure here. Another piece here is, this is very important, understanding on the lookup, if the lookup is deleted, right? If that account is deleted in this case, do I just want to clear the value of this field or do not even allow the deletion of the account? And so great option that can oftentimes be on the test. So make sure you understand this, go through a few scenarios of this. And then the last thing is the lookup filters. You can also filter what type of records you can even look up, right? To be able to know which ones are even available to select. And so here is the lookup filters. But in this case, I'm just gonna hit next. And I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna put it all visible, and I'm gonna put this on the page layout here. And so this is that related list that's gonna show up on the account under leads. So as I hit save, now I have that lookup relationship between the lead and the account. And so just to show this, I'm actually gonna go back and just quickly go into the Schema Builder here. And now that I've refreshed, here I am on the lead, and we see that it's now being attached to that matched account. It's now matching to the account. So I just established that relationship through a lookup field that I could select I could require it. I could either delete the related record or just clear it out, as well as those lookup filters. These are all very important stuff that you want to make sure you go through Trailhead, go through a developer org, delete these records, look at the error messages, etc. This is extremely important. Really, the object manager is the backbone of Salesforce, and the Schema Builder is great. You can visualize the objects and their relationships. On another note on standard objects, I would recommend that you go through the object manager and that you know which ones are standard Salesforce objects that are gonna exist with any Salesforce edition, and go through the object manager, and you'll know what's commonly used. Again, the more you experiment with Salesforce, the more you interact with Salesforce, the more that you'll understand which ones are standard and which ones are custom. And so that's really standard objects. Important to understand, again, those relationships, where you can see those in the Schema Builder, different types, whether it's master detail, whether it's lookup, whether it's a hierarchy relationship, and know how many of each you can have on objects and across objects. Next, I want to touch briefly on record types. Record types are essentially a way to break up or differentiate different types of records within the same object. So in this case, let's talk about, we'll talk about opportunities, for example. Your opportunities, you may have very different types of opportunities that require different processes, require different teams to access and edit, or even require just a different set of fields to be visible. Record types are a way for Salesforce to be able to assign those different processes, those different layouts, those different teams to differentiate those within the same object. And so in my mind, it's easy to overutilize record types, but in my mind, it's important to note that when you have totally different profiles that need access to them, different teams, and different business processes, which I'll go through sales processes and different processes in a few minutes, this is where record types are used. So great example is opportunities. An opportunity, for example, may be very different in what type it is, whether it is a new business opportunity or whether it is a renewal opportunity. If I look right now at my opportunity, this is just a new business opportunity. It has several of those standard stages, right? Prospecting, qualification, needs analysis. They're just understanding what you do as a company, what product you sell, what service you sell, and they know who you are, or they don't know who you are yet. Now, as you win this opportunity, you may have renewal opportunities, maybe subscription based. So in next year, you need a new opportunity, but maybe you don't have the exact same process, the exact same approach to that opportunity. Maybe it's much shorter. Maybe it's just evaluating the new contract with the client and going through some negotiation and then closing it again. And so that's a very different business process. And so that's where record types come in. Record types give you the ability to differentiate those different processes and layouts. So I want to jump in and actually create a record type with you on the opportunity. So I'm going to go in here to the Object Manager, and I'm going to go here on the opportunity. And what we're going to do here is, if we see here the record types, we'll see that there is none right now. So I want to go ahead and create new record type. And in order to have a record type, I need a sales process, which is something that I referenced earlier. A sales process essentially is going to be those steps needed in the sales cycle, which we saw here are listed here. And so we're going to have this one, we'll call this one a master. I'm going to create a new business sales process. And actually, before I jump off, so we'll have all of the stages be a part of the new business sales process. And then I also want to create that renewal process. We'll just mirror it off of this, and we will call it renewal. So please go through this process, go through this firsthand, understand what you can do. In this case, what I'd like to do, because I don't really need to prospect or qualify or needs analysis, this really is a much shorter sales cycle. They already know who we are. They already use our service or product. Really, we just want to see what's their perception of us. We want to review a price, negotiate, and then go to a close, won, or loss for the next year. So that's going to be my renewal process. And so this is going to be important as we look up the page layouts and assign page layouts and sales processes to the different record types. So here I have the sales process for the opportunity here. Now, going back to the Object Manager and back to create record types, I'm going to jump back onto the opportunity. And now I want to create those record types. So here I am creating a new record type. This first one I'm going to have titled as new business. And I want to set it up to also follow that new business process that I just created. And what's great here on the record types is here's where I can tell the system which profiles even have this record type available or even have it as a default. So this is where under profiles you could differentiate usage of record types, visibility of record types, etc. In this case, I'm going to make it available to all. And so now I have the new business record type with profile availability, and now I can have it on the page layouts, which is another place where you can make sure that you set, according to the record type, the page layout. So again, record types, you're able to differentiate process, you're able to differentiate access via profiles, and you're able to differentiate profile or layouts on the record type. So here I'm just going to have it as the general one, and I will hit save, right? And so now I have that new business record type, which allows me to, again, processes, permissions, and layouts. So now I want to set up one with the renewal record type. And so I'm going to set this up here. I'm going to call this the renewal. Have it on the renewal process. Make sure I set these for active. I'll make this one available to all and hit next. And so now that I have the two record types set up, they have different layouts for the time being. This renewal has this sales layout. I'm going to hit save. Now, you notice that as these record types are built, they become available here as we create net new opportunities. So if I go to hit new opportunity here, we now have this screen that's saying, okay, what type of opportunity is this? Which record type do you want to build this opportunity on? New business or renewal? So that's how we create those record types. That's why they are useful, is to make sure you can differentiate business processes, differentiate page layouts, as well as give access and make those default on the profile level. Next bullet point here is to explain, delete, create, and customize of fields and page layouts as well as what are some of the implications of deleting fields. So let's continue on our process with these opportunities of new business and renewal. Let's create a few more fields here just to show what that looks like, as well as how we would delete those and be able to put those on different page layouts. So here we see on the opportunity the fields that currently live on the opportunity page layout. Now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and edit this information. I want to edit how it appears. So here I have some different information here. It looks like I have a few billing information. So I kind of want to create a new section on the opportunity for that. And so how we would do that is under the Object Manager, and I'm going to go to Page Layouts. Now, Page Layouts, here's where all the different page layouts are. If you recall, these are also set up on different record types. But what is important is to understand the page layout assignment. So oftentimes you will edit a page layout, you'll go to look at Salesforce, and you'll see that the edit didn't happen. Or you'll have a rep say, hey, I thought you added this field, I thought you put it in this section, where is it? Oftentimes you want to check the page layout assignment to see how these layouts are assigned to different profiles or record types. In this case, we have it just set up right now for record type new business, record type renewal, and all the profiles have the different layouts here. And so this is important. This is where you want to go to make sure that you assign these layouts to record types and profiles. Those are how you assign those. So in this case, I just want to go ahead and go back and just update the opportunity layout so it'll appear on this. And so I want to go ahead and create a new section for maybe some billing information here, or delivery information. And so here I am under the page layout. Here's where you can edit fields, buttons, custom links, quick actions. A lot of what you see here is on this page layout. Primarily these fields, which is what I'm talking about, as well as the related lists. This is going to be very important to understand how you configure it, where you configure it, etc. But everything you see here, other than global actions for the most part, is going to be edited here under the page layout. So, for example, I want to create that new section and I want to put some fields under that. So here is where I will create a new section here. So if I go under fields, you'll see that I can select, I can drag and drop a field. I can click on a field and see where it's located currently, and I can have a section or a blank space. So in this case, I'm going to create a section here, and I'm just going to call this delivery info, right? I can have it, as you saw there, I could have that as one column or two columns and read it left to right or up and down. And so delivery info, I actually want to move some of this stuff, right? Let's say all of this information living down here, I want to move it under this delivery info. So I'm going to move tracking, current, order number, delivery status, etc. I want to save that there. So now that I've saved that, give it some time to refresh, but that's how you can update the page layout, is through the Object Manager and the object that you're wishing to update there. And so we can create sections, we can create update where those fields appear, etc. And so now that I'm on the opportunity, you'll see here I now have the delivery info that has the fields that I selected. So that's how you update those page layouts and how you assign those layouts to profiles as well as to record types. Now, last piece here is some of the implications of deleting fields. Very important on this test to understand not only implications of deleting fields, but which field types you can convert one to another, and which ones will result in data loss, and which ones will convert just fine. Now, for the most part, deleting fields, there are some cases where when you delete fields, you will obviously lose all data of that field across the entire org for that object, as well as there's some cases where you're not able to delete certain fields because they are either required or are involved in a lookup field. But the most important thing to note is that it will result in data loss. So it's very important understanding, your backup options, understanding, if you're going to delete this field and maybe convert it to a different field, you may need to export that data and import it into a different field, or try to convert the the field type into another type. But if that's not possible, you'll need to look at exporting data and importing it to that new field. Because for the most part, deleting field will result in that data loss. Now the third point is, given a scenario, determine how to create and assign page layouts, record types, and how to use business processes for both standard and custom objects. So what's great to note is that between standard and custom objects, these processes of creating page layouts, of creating record types, of assigning business processes, these are all very similar. But as we've walked through, it's important to understand how this relates to the architecture or, the schema that we went over in the beginning. As we looked at the schema, we had the objects, we had how they related to one another, and now we're diving into each object. And we're saying, how does this appear to users? And that, to me, is the core of what an admin does, is you want to make Salesforce the easiest translation for the end user to help their job so that they have the information they need and the information they need to gather in an accessible way. Whether that is differentiating different business processes with record types, such as the opportunity new business and the opportunity renewal, as well as assigning page layouts based on those record types. Renewal fields may be very different from a new business fields. And so on the page layouts, we can assign those fields and create those sections accordingly. So I'm gonna wrap this up by creating just a different page layout for renewal and assigning it to that record type, and then show you what that end user looks like. So I'm gonna jump back in. We currently have this opportunity layout, which for the most part is on the new business op, but I wanna create a new one here. I'm gonna create it existing off of that the current opportunity layout, but we're gonna call this the renewal layout. And so this one is gonna be assigned to the record type of renewal. And so we'll have a lot of the same stuff, but just to show you the differences here, I'm actually gonna take out just a lot of these fields so it looks a lot smaller, just so you can tell the difference here. But again, just important to note that these page layouts are to simplify the process for your end users, to make sure what needs to be seen is currently being seen, etc. I'll leave them out here. And so I've taken out several fields here so it'll appear much shorter. And I'm actually gonna, let's rename this delivery info. I'm gonna call this, we'll call this renewal info. That way we know that it's actually a part of this renewal layout here. So I'm gonna hit save. So now I have a renewal layout. Now I wanna make sure that I assign this to the renewal record type. And so I'm gonna go ahead, here I have it's currently under the existing sales layout, but I wanna edit here. And I want to go into the renewals, and I'm gonna highlight all. So this is all of the profiles for the renewal record type. I want to put as the renewal layout. And I'm gonna go ahead and hit save. So just like that, all of the profiles, if it is a renewal record type, it is gonna be the renewal layout. So I'm gonna create two new opportunities showing the different layouts through the record types, new business and renewal. So let's create a new business opportunity here first. Gonna go ahead, let's just put in some dummy data here. I'm gonna say test NB op, and we'll put in prospecting, this first stage. I'm gonna hit save, and we're gonna go ahead and see on this layout, we have all the stages here at the top, and here's what we're expecting, this delivery info with all of the information here. Great, this is great for new business. But now we have a renewal opportunity that has different information on it. It has a different business process. So we've assigned that new page layout. So to show you what that looks like is if I hit new here, and this time I'm gonna select a renewal opportunity. And this time I'm gonna put in this different close date, and we'll say test renewal. You'll notice here that the renewal info is showing now, because that's what I had put in that page layout. Oh, gotta hit a stage. And if you recall, the stages are less based on the business process that we assigned earlier. So less stages here, I'm gonna hit save. And this is a totally different layout, completely different business process as opposed to the last opportunity. So that's the walkthrough I wanted to go through for the Object Manager and Lightning App Builder, is helping you understand object relationships, the architecture, as well as what it looks like to create business processes, record types, and edit page layouts. Highly recommend that you go through Trailhead and that you go through Developer Org, go through all of these steps, create a different app for whatever hobby that you have, create those objects, relate those objects, and create fields, delete fields, create record types, processes, and page layouts. As you do that, you'll become more familiar. As you go through the test, you'll be able to see those questions in your developer org in your mind and be able to answer these scenarios appropriately. Best of luck and look forward to seeing you in the next video of this series. Thanks.